All right, welcome everyone. This is the third episode of Big Free. We got my man Brian Razz as usual. A very special guest, Phil Hellmuth, fresh off the World Series of Poker. He got his 16th bracelet, runner-up player of the year. Phil, how are you?
Fantastic. I'm super tired. This last week was so intense. Razz is my best tournament. I have the best record in the history at the World Series. And so to make that final table, I really thought I'm going to win another bracelet. It was my sixth final table. Somehow I finished eighth. I had a really kind of rough level the night before. And I felt like I deserved a lot more chips, but deserves a really tough word. I played great. And then, Friday, so that's Thursday. And then you're exhausted after a final table. And then Friday, I told my wife, I'm not playing this 50K pot live in Omaha. And then I had somebody had offered to put me in the tournaments for a really nice free roll. And Sean Deep said, you have to play the pot live in Omaha. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, fuck. So I called the guy back and he's like, we can't for legal reasons or whatever do this. And I was like, fuck. So I have to put up my own 50K in the pot live in Omaha, which turned out to be fine because I finished second for 750, but it's 4:30 in the morning, and I know it's down to me and Daniel and Jeremy Osmus. Mm-hmm. And I know if I win it, I'm going to take a nice lead in player of the year. And so it was just a real battle for three-handed. I think we went 3-4 hours.
I actually watched that. Yeah, it was very interesting. A lot of like interesting hands got played. So I will say this, you had a very large number of total animal bluffs, and it was pretty impressive to watch. Then they all got through other than one uber heroic call by Daniel.
That one ain't an animal. I bet too little.
Yeah. But yeah.
Where does
I've never seen anyone bluff so much, and they just all worked except one.
Yeah, and how would you rate pot limit in all their games?
Well, you got to understand, Rasty, that what happens is I play super, super tight, right, all the time. And that's a really good system for me. And so then no one expects it somehow, some way. And then all of a sudden we get down there and I'm like, okay, the only way to win is get a little animal. Now I got to 15 million. There's 25 million in the tournament. And then Daniel put this weird beat on me. He didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. But I don't like the way I played the hand. I limped in with ace, king, queen in the small blind. Why would I limp it? He defends super wide anyway. And then it comes ace, queen, 6, and his hand is king, jack, 3, 4. And I bet 400,000, which the big blind was 4. So he called, drawing to an offsuit 10, and a 10 popped off. And I think and gave me a flush draw, king high flush draw. So I've top 2, a king high flush draw, and a straight draw.
Yeah.
And I checked, figuring that probably hit a belly buster, which is a weird way to think, but I was right. He bet, and I'm like, fuck. And I called, and I also trapped to check him, obviously. I also checked to trap him. And then a blank on the river. King came on the river, actually. So all I needed was the board was, it came ace, queen, 6, then a 10, then a king. So 4 cards straight. And then I paid off 1.5 million on the river. And that was such a turning point, because if I play the hand the right way, I'm going to go to 16 million, and I'm squeezing these guys. They're down to 5 and 4. I should have kept
just raise. Maybe he defends pot flop, and he's probably out.
Of course he's out.
Yeah. I was thinking about this when you said it. Just jumping back a couple minutes, Razz. I have a little theory. Like, what do you think about this? Like, I obviously play the mixed games, and Razz is a game unlike a lot like Stud 8. There's a lot of kind of mathy technical spots. But like Razz is very much a game where first, when someone comes in, sometimes they have a more standard hand, or occasionally they have a banana like in the hole. And then not only that, during the course of the hand, when someone catches a card, oftentimes if it's a good card, either it's a good card or it paired them.
Correct.
So like, I feel like that's a game where playing Razz, like unlike a lot of the other limit games, there's a lot of spots for reads where either someone really likes or doesn't like something. Which is probably why it's maybe your strongest limit game.
That's why I have a first, a second, a 5th, an 8th, and a 12th in the last 6 years. And there's only been 12 Razz tournaments.
Yeah.
And I missed 1 or 2. So yeah, it's a great reading game, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to tell a hand that was so animal that the true professionals are going to love to hear this hand, but the amateurs are going to be like, la-di-la-di-da-di-da-di-da, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
So I raised it with an 8 up, and I'm going to say I raced with a 10 up, actually. No, let's call it an 8. And Max Pescatori called with a deuce up. A 3 up. I'm going to get the story right now. I got it right. Okay, so then he hits a deuce, and I hit a 10. So now I have 10-8, and he has deuce 3, and he bets, and I call. So first of all, almost everybody on the planet just folds right there because he broke into deuce 3. And if it has deuce 3-4, you're not in that great a shape. So the turn card, I hit a king, and he hit a 3. So now my board is king 10-8, and he bet.
And but he paired one of his low cards, right? Was it
His board is deuce 3-3.
Mm-hmm. But the 3 was his original card, so he
Correct.
paired his original card.
Correct.
Which is a little important, actually. But
Yeah. So 3-3 deuce. So I sat there, and I just kind of berated somebody for trying to hit runner. And not only that, my runner is, 2 and an 8, right? Where is it? Yeah, an 8.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. And so I call, but I say out loud, I think you paired the deuce. I call him. And then I hit a queen, and he hit a 4. And he bet again.
Okay, now is the...
Now you have to fold.
Yeah,
Except not me. I check raised a moment.
Oh, wow.
So I check raised. So my board is 8, 10, king, queen.
So you have
His board is
a
deuce,
queen with a draw to a 10.
3, 4. I have a
Yeah.
queen with a draw to a 10. I check raised him my last 25 and bet 6K. He called the 2,500. And the weirdest thing about the hand is he was actually drawing dead.
He had paired the deuce and he had like a jack or something, or a bad one, right?
Worse than that. He had a full house already.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we don't know why he called the extra 2,500. Somebody was joking we should go get a ruling. What's he doing? He has a full house. Someone else said, well, Phil could have had 10s and 8s. So he wasn't technically. And so it was just so fucking animal to play the hand like that. And for my last chips too. And so then Sean Deeb, who never complimented me in poker ever, not one time, said, oh my God. He said, now my eyes are open. I see that was such a great play, Phil. He's like, that was amazing. And, and the story's funnier because he was drawing dead. Yeah. That's why the story is amazing to anybody out there who plays at all. It's like, what the fuck? It'd be one thing if somehow I was right and he had deuces and 3s and he had somehow an 8 draw and missed, but drawing dead. And then literally 2 hours later, I had the chip lead. And so we're second in chips, finished the day second in chips.
Yeah.
And then day 2, I played just fucking amazing. And, the last 2 hours, it was very brutal. Eric Sagstrom and John Monet they kept starting with a 9. And I kept starting with, 3 to the 7, 3 to the 6. And they beat me. And they didn't do anything wrong. It was just, that's, they were representing hands. And so literally, I think I lost maybe, 10 out of 10 pots to those guys in that spot. And it really hurt. And so I'm just fighting and scrapping. But, if you're going to lose with 3-5-7 against a guy with a 9-8, and I say you have a 9, and I say you paired 9s, I still can't do anything when I hit king queen. Because now he breaks into a 9 and a 6. And I'm like, I think you have 9s, but you could have a 9 made. And I really am drawing. And so, anyway, whatever. Razz it's so misunderstood, number one. And number two, it's such a beautiful game. There's so much skill. And, Mike the Matusow, who I've talked 300 hours to in the last 2 months about poker strategies.
It's a lot.
That's all he wants to talk about. Did you hear about this hand? Did you hear about that hand? And we talk just tons of hours. And, he was like, Razz is all luck. And I said, listen, I want you to lay me 10-1 on me making the final table. I bet 10,000. And I said, but after that, you shut the fuck up for the rest of your life about whether Razz is luck or not.
Wow.
He's like, Razz is all luck. Of course I'll lay you 10-1, Phil. And I'm like, okay, you got to bet. And then I realized I just didn't want to. What am I going to do? I won a tournament and I threw him 10,000 for sweating me. When I finished second, I threw him 5,000 just as gifts. What am I going to try to do? Bust Mike the mouth?
Right. Yeah.
And I said, but you're going to have to shut up if I make this final table. And afterwards,
That's worth
he's
a
like,
lot. That is worth a lot.
yeah. And afterwards, he's like, all right, Phil, now you need to teach me. And I'm like, I'm not sure I want to teach you because everything I teach you, because I taught him everything about every game. Yeah. And he's taught me everything about every game. But Mike, will promise I won't tell anybody anything. And then Phil Ivey will call me and say, oh, Mike told me to do this.
It's a great trick
What the fuck? You told fucking Ivy this? What the fuck? And so I can't trust him, but I think he's figured out a lot. And you're starting to see a few things too. It happens to be, the game happens to have a tremendous amount of skill in it. It's just, and no, I don't think anybody else on the planet plays the King, Queen, 10. I don't think one other person on the planet would have continued.
Yeah, it's a really rough spot when he hits the 4.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
you and some other great players might be able to somehow call with the deuce 3-3. Then the 4 though.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, here's the thing. I think some alarm bells go off depending on who you're playing, because it depends on the way they mix their ranges up on third. But alarm bells would go off when the deuce, especially on a short stack, doesn't raise you with opening an 8. I mean, assuming you probably have 3 to an 8, but most people, when they have a really low card up, raise, even if they have an 8 or a 9 in the hole or not. Like, most people play the hand that way. So that would have been a little, like, I don't know what other cards were up, but that would have been a little like, okay, like, what's going on? But usually, even at that point, when you've caught pretty bad and he's got the deuce 3-3-4 up, usually at that point, most people give up the hand. So I told myself, listen, you need to focus on day 2. You can't be telling the story. Yeah. If you send the story out, all the great players are going to be like, oh my God, right? The greatest of the great are going to understand how pure my play was. And then all the guys that say they're great, the idiots that don't understand what we're really doing, that say that math says this, math said that, they're going to be like, oh, well, whatever, it was lucky, Phil. But the greatest of the great, I thought, if I send the story out, I'm bragging. And so let me just focus on day 2. And then day 3. And then now that it's over, I can brag a little bit about the hand because it was so much fun.
We were talking, Brian and I, before about like solver work. And I know you do, people like to joke about this thing that you have, this kind of like superpower. But what do you say to those? Like, because I know it's kind of a weird thing. We talked about this on my podcast before, to get the respect of players like Sean Deeb and other great players versus like kind of like, does it matter? You just keep getting results, whether the great players acknowledge you or the public thinks you're the best or whatever. Like, how does that make you feel? Do you want to be known as the best? Do you like, just like, if they think someone doesn't respect your game, you just punish them and win?
That's a good question. I want to be known as the best, and for sure. But then I kind of don't like it when, like, I was playing in the No Limit yesterday, right, and have a chance at Player of the Year, and everybody else goes out. So I have to finish first or second for Player of the Year. Maybe this was like 12 hours ago or something. But anyway, I had this shot, and Jared was at my table, and Jared's, oh my God, Phil's the greatest. Blesnick. He's like, and we all know Jared to be a really great player. It's like, Phil's the greatest. You fucking idiots don't understand what he's doing. I watched the pump. Then bets 100,000 on me against somebody else in the middle of the tournament, and I don't want to hear that. I love Jared. Thank you, brother, for the compliments. Mm-hmm. But I want to be thinking, okay, it's no limit hold'em. I want to sit in my seat. I tried to turn the music up as loud as I could because I just want to focus. What do I need to do to win this tournament right now? What do I need to do to play perfectly the next 5 minutes? What do I need to do to make it to the end of the day? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do? Because I'm on, right? I'm as on as I've ever been. And so it's a matter of and then all that distraction. So, it's particularly distracting when it comes from great players. So you want their respect. You probably don't want to be hearing about it, right at that moment. And it does affect you, it's like,
I had a moment with
and let me say one other thing.
And
then I want to come back to you on this. So I was with Michael Jordan once. We're in Miami at this nightclub. And we're standing side by side. We're the only 2 guys dancing. All you motherfuckers are afraid to dance. You fucking guys just go to the club and just stand there like this.
I dance.
But Jordan and I are dancing. We feel like we're the greatest. And I look at him and I'm going, yo, MJ, you are the greatest. And it's 1 a.m. It's a mansion. We're at the club. And Holifield's with us. All these fucking superstars are there. And he stops me. You're the greatest. Because he doesn't want praise. Praise is so fucking corrosive. When great people tell you you're great, it's you don't want it. Like you crave it, but they give it to you and it fucks with your head. It's a mind fuck. And dealing with that mind fuck, I've gotten better and better. And I said, no, let me finish. And I said, yo, MJ, you have 6 world championships, but I have 9, motherfucker. And then he slapped me, gave me a high five, and then we started laughing.
Oh, this
and-
was a
and
while
drinking.
ago because you got 16.
Yeah,
This
it was a long time
10
ago.
years
I don't
or
know,
something.
maybe longer than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. I had 9 or 10, but it was a long time ago. But praise is fucking corrosive, and it gets to your head.
About the mindfuck thing, because there's actually a number of things I think is interesting. So first, in the Razz, there was a period on day 2 early on where I got the chip lead briefly. Went to another table that I think was much harder because I was at a table where I built up all these chips with like Benny Glazer, another really great player. You know, Benny plays the game very well, I think. A different style, a very aggressive style, but he's good.
Benny plays very fast.
Very
And
fast.
Benny, I'm saying this to you. He's so fast, and he's been super lucky against me. I recognize he's great, and he won the tournament, and he deserved it. But I mean, you know, I want him at my table because if I start beating him pots, I'm going to get a lot of chips quickly.
Yeah.
He plays more pots than anybody else.
And there was another really good player at the table who I forget his name right now. But anyway, I go to this other table that I thought was softer, didn't win a hand for an entire level, didn't drag a chip, getting sucked out on 7th. And I started to get quite tilted. I even remember going over to JG. And it's funny, like within 24 hours, I saw this really cool clip by Giannis Antetokounmpo talking about how when he thinks about the past, it's his ego, and the future.
You saw that just recently?
Yeah, and I retweeted it, and I'm like,
amazing.
But staying in the present is about being humble, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is speaking to me because like I'm getting tilted in this Razz tournament because I had all these chips, so now I'm thinking about winning, right? And then when things don't work out, because I mean things don't work out in poker.
Entitlement tilt.
Like yes, and then you get a little tilted about it, and you know during the time I was tilted, I could say I was pretty happy with all my play, other than 1-7 street bet, which was bad, and I lost, and the guy sucked out on me, but I should have checked my hand back.
You played good during entitlement tilt. That's where I always blow it.
So, but like, I think if I wasn't tilted, I wouldn't have made that bet, right? That was an entitlement bet, actually.
I've never heard
lost
that.
a big bet because
Entitlement
of that.
tilt. That's a new thing.
And
I've
it's
never
just like, wow. And then I had and even though I didn't really run good the rest of the series, I went out in some of these high rollers, I felt like a lot better. And I actually was okay with a lot of my play, you know, it just didn't work out. But what you're saying like made me think of that first because of this exact thing I was thinking, but then also it's almost another question for you because you're very well known for what happens at the table, which I feel like, you know, watching some hands this summer and having played with you for a long time, like I personally think a lot of people misunderstand your play. And even talking about the standardization of poker with solvers and GTO, and not to take anything away from that, but at the end of the day, you're playing against people. You can get reads, which you do better than like almost anyone. And that's a totally separate, like physical this. But then beyond that, it's like these people aren't perfect. Like and especially in games that aren't no limit hold'em, where there aren't even really good public solvers available. Like people have their styles, and so like one of the whole points of poker is to exploit what they're doing wrong, which is not a game theory optimal way to play it, right? You're already deviating to exploit. So, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand that very well. And yeah, even I can just say like watching a few things, like definitely watching the PLO final table, you know, there are a few spots like I would have played a few hands differently.
Of course.
But there's also some spots where I was just watching you rip in these bluffs where like I never would have played it that way and you just won the pot. And I'm like, okay, wow. And I think it's one thing that everyone's like so quick to judge and tear other people down rather than give respect for like what other people do that's right, you know? And you do, like, even though you do some things that I wouldn't do, you do like a lot of things right. And so, I mean, I just want to say that to you right here, but then, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, like, here's the thing, Rasta. The beautiful thing for me is this.
Yeah.
You have a whole generation of players that think they're playing perfect.
Yeah.
And they're not. And I know it, but only 4 or 5 people know it on the planet. So it's great for me. I don't want them to learn. I don't want to be on any streams anymore. I really don't.
Yeah.
I want to be on streams when I'm filming with my friends, when we're filming No Limit Hold'em. That's great because I don't want to be on these fucking streams. I don't want them to see what I'm doing because now they're starting to say, oh my God, you know, we didn't give Phil enough credit. You know what they should have done 20 years ago and 10 years ago? I said, wow, what is he doing right? When I came into poker, I studied Jack Keller. I studied the great players. I'm like, all right, what's he doing that I'm not doing? To learn. These idiots not only don't study me, they're like, this was a bad play, this was a bad play, this was a bad play. And if I sat down with them one-on-one, I could tell them exactly why I did what I did. And they'd be like, oh my God, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm not want that. I don't want that. I want the credit, but I don't want them to get better.
I want to ask you about your so-called blow-ups or your passion, because
They don't deserve to get better for all the shit they give me, honestly.
well, all right, there you have it. But my question is, for those at home that see you, you know, because like the word entitlement is important, right? It's like you don't want to come from a place that I saw an interview during your three-handed PLO. Daniel Negreanu came up and was kind of having a rough patch, right? He's a lot of min cashes or whatever, and he said about responsibility. You know, he take responsibility, realize like when you find yourself tilted, like when you outburst and get upset, because we all feel it. We all want to win. Poker's competitive, right? You're at the table. Everyone there is trying their best. They want to win. Sometimes you might just like, you know, show your emotions. Do you believe that's part of what makes you great and different, is the passion, and that you just wear it on your sleeve? Or do you sometimes when after something you go back and like, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that or said that to that person? Or is it just who you are and you just, that's like your passion?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, always wish I wouldn't have said it. Always, I feel that way, right?
Okay.
But there's a community now. Razz and I were talking about this. It's a community. It's like 120 people that all play the 10Ks together. There's a real community. I think everybody felt closer this year. There's a lot of bonding going on. And I'm just the guy that has a bad temper and cries too much, but then 3 minutes later we'll ask you about your wife. So they all love me.
Right.
It feels really nice. I'm loved by the 100 high limit tournament players that I play with all the time. They all love me. When I was going crazy at the Zeno final table, he texted me. We were texting back and forth. I said, "You played great, right?" People don't know that. They think that I was mad at Zeno or something. You know?
Right.
I was fucking tilted that he went a little crazy with the diamond draw and got there, right? And it was very tilting for me. And so I went off a little bit.
Right.
Or a lot of it in that case. But there's this community that loves me. So it was like 2 days ago, I was going off a little bit, and it was remarkable that exactly 1 minute later, the guy and I were talking and laughing and fist bumping and high fiving. So the poker community knows that's just me not being able to control myself. Now that you talk about, you know, fake news, right? Fake news is where you see Phil Hellmuth doing that, and you don't understand the effect it has on the people around him. You know, instead, people are like, "Oh my God, he's the worst for poker." Blah blah blah. You ask these 100 guys;
that's not.
They all want to be at my table.
It's good for poker,
but they all want to be at my table too. All the
Actually.
amateurs, all the pro, they all want to be with me because I'm going to have fun and I'm going to laugh and I'm going to joke and I have a lot of charisma and personality.
Yeah.
And not bragging, I just have some personality, for better or for worse. People want to be at my table, and so you know, so the world gets this impression of, "Oh my God, this guy's an asshole. Look at the way he's treating random people."
Yeah.
And that's a good point. So I don't want other people treating people like that. And so after that outburst for the stud final table, I reined it in.
Let me say why a few things. First, to a certain extent, a reason why it's good for poker is, I mean, listen, there's a hardcore it's a small percentage of hardcore poker players that will watch a stream in order to watch. Like what I do, I'm like, see how people play. It's interesting. You learn things, you think about the game, but most people are watching more for like the dramatic aspect of it, and you're providing that. You're providing a lot of like drama and stuff. Like, you know, a lot of people, and I'm not always the most talkative person, are sitting there. They're really trying to make decisions. They're thinking, and you're interacting. You're a personality. You've been there for years. You've won the most bracelets. You obviously give a shit. And even if sometimes maybe you step over, you know, what a social norm of being polite would be, the same time as like you're creating drama. It's like there's a reason why people watch reality TV shows. It's like, you know, you have a character, people get to know the character, and then there's interactions and you create a certain amount of drama. So like, I think it actually makes it more interesting, right? And I will back up and say about the other part, yeah, there's a lot of, even though everybody's competing, there's a lot of camaraderie with what's going on with this small group of people that play all these like 10Ks. And yeah, and like people like each other. And I'll even say from earlier in my career, when I didn't know you, I always viewed it as a little bit of a badge of honor. Like I remember playing poker with you, like when we were in the.
Let me give you kind of like, everybody views it as a badge of honor. Oh, Phil went off on me.
Yeah.
Then they say it out loud. This is a badge of honor.
Yeah. Like when I was young, like when we were playing in the Poker Players Championship, we had played together a couple days, and you know, I knew that deep inside you were coming after me because like there are times, especially back in the day, when I used to kind of run the table with aggression and like, but in a very, you know, like we were just talking about Benny Glazer and like, you know, you don't want someone else to be the table captain. So it's like, you would come after me and, you know, I know what's going on. I see it. I don't want to give away everything that you do with that, but there's a certain amount of like emotional manipulation that happens that I think you probably get reads out of. And so like, you know, but I viewed it as a badge of honor that like you came after and berated me, you know?
Yeah, that's what all
you wouldn't do that if you didn't.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've arrived, Phil Hellmuth berated me. And so it's weird.
Yeah.
So you have this public perspective and you have this perspective of the people that we actually play with.
Yeah, that the people that you're competing with. So
Right.
yeah, it's cool.
Let's talk a little about this WSOP.
To come back to the solvers for a
yeah,
second.
let's address this, Phil, because I think
Okay,
some people think you may be locked in your room and you might.
I've never used a solver in my life.
Okay.
Wouldn't even know where to go to get one. Right. I looked at game theory optimal for about 2 hours of my life. Then I won the no limit tournament the next day. Once I realized they were floating me with nothing, I'm like, these motherfuckers. Right. So that day this is a true story. You can't make this up. The next day I just bombed every flop. I said, well, of course they're going to call. So I bombed every turn.
Yeah.
And then and then I bombed every river and I just went shh and won the tournament. And so no, I've spent no time studying any of that stuff. What I will watch is the way sometimes people are playing hands, right? And I'm like, God, that can't possibly be right. That can't possibly be right. That can't. Watching the no limit tournaments, and to me, they're making all these mistakes. But it's funny because then they think I'm making all these mistakes. Right. And so that's the great thing about poker, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that think they're better than me in a lot of games, right? And there are a lot of people that I think that I'm better in a lot of games. Well, and no limit.
No limit's the game where there's the most solver and like it's a publicly available solver such as PO. Like, do you believe that really since solvers have become public, say like 5 or 6 years, do you believe that the overall quality of no limit hold'em play has improved? Because I will say, I actually think the last 5 or 6 years have been, since whatever I've been playing for almost 20, you've been playing for 35 or so. So like, to me, out of the last 20 years, the biggest kind of jump up, I think, in just overall level of play has really been the last 5 or 6 in no limit that I feel. And I think it's because of solvers.
People are playing better. People used to not play tight enough.
Yeah.
And now I sat down in the main event. The main event was just this amazing event where all these players came in that had no chance to win, right? And you still a ton of them, but they just call off their whole stacks. It would come queen 4 deuce, and they'd put in 100 big blinds with queen king.
Yeah, queen jack, queen.
It was amazing, right? And you just chip up, and and very frustrating when you have aces and they somehow have their set of deuces that one hand after putting hundreds of big blinds on the top pair. But that's neither here nor there. But just to speak to your question, people have gotten a lot tighter. So when I played the main event, I was surprised.
So let's talk about the main, because let's be honest. A lot of the people in the main, they're not using solvers, or if they are, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Let's talk about like a higher echelon of poker player, like guys that both you and I know.
Like
we don't need to name names,
6
but these guys are clearly using solvers. They have their private groups, whatever. I mean, them, like more like the high roller crowd. I don't know. I feel like a lot of those guys got a lot better from where they were 7 years ago.
I think they've all gotten better.
Yeah.
But there's still certain assumptions that they make, especially the GTO stuff. I thought was not the best, right? Now people are starting to get away from GTO, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was so funny to have all these clowns. Well, I'm going to say it. These motherfuckers come after me. All these clowns playing GTO, and me just going, "Wow, that is a ridiculous way to play poker," and have all these clowns tell me how bad I was at no limit hold'em. Was just, there's such an irony there. Right?
Like, give me an example. Like, let's say in a spot where it's definitely a GTO play, but you're at
I'm
a
not
table.
going to give you any examples.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is it something where when you're down at the table and you're like, okay, my table's soft. Like this guy, there's certain things this guy can't do or won't do, and you see people just like making like big jams or high risk plays. Is that a little bit of it too? Like you just know how to not put your chips at risk in a spot where the book says shoves threes, but like you're not going to do it because they're hour levels and you're going to find a great spot to go post swap and pick up chips. Is it more like that?
Correct. A bunch of stuff like that. I don't want to go into specifics.
Yeah, I don't want to give away the
because
secrets.
I'm giving away my secrets.
This is big
but
free. This isn't all
so
the secret
fun,
free. This
so
is,
weird
you know,
though for me. And I'd say, Mike, do you understand? And Mike's Matusow is the only guy who I really talk everything with. And I'm like, do you see how badly they're playing? Mike's like, oh, these are all the best players. These guys are great. And I said, Mike, you're better than they are right now.
I remember you told me this. It was like
And then all of a
epiphany
sudden,
for
Mike
him.
started getting there all the time at no limit. He's like, oh my God, you're right. And then I'm like, do you see these plays that they're making? They cannot possibly be right. Yet they just taught the whole fucking poker world to play exactly like this. And I'm laughing. So either I'm delusional, right? Which is a possibility. I'm delusional.
Unlikely.
Right? Or you have the whole fucking world is off. Right? And so I like that. I like that dynamic.
I think that's why poker's so alive, though, because there's this both sides. People feel one way or another, and like the game is. I feel like the game's in a strong place right now. What do you?
Let me
Imagine. I'm going to say one thing, and it's
Yeah.
going to go. I love this line. It's like a fucking kindergartner telling Einstein me that he's not smart. That's what GTO was saying to me. Like fucking kindergartners telling me Einstein that I'm not smart. And so I mean, but they all believed it and they all fired it and they all said it thousands of times. They travel in fucking packs, you know this, right? This is the pack, right? And then everybody says, imagine this. So there's this pack and they say everybody has to do this. And if you're just a little bit off the pack from a social perspective and you make a mistake, they shoot you. What an idiot play that was, come closer to the pack. So all the guys that are outliers that bust, they all come into the pack. And so the pack just continues to go whichever way it goes, right? And I'll never be in the pack. I want to look at the pack and figure out how to beat the pack. If you all are going to play this way, then I can play that way, you know? And so now when it comes to the solver stuff, I can't speak to, I know this, you still have to execute.
Yes.
And let's just say that let's say that a solver told you that this is exactly the perfect thing to do at all times.
With your range.
Correct.
Yeah.
And let's say that the math, you have it perfectly down.
Yeah.
That guy still might not ever win a tournament.
Yeah.
Because guys like you and I, and you are great at reading people, are going to say, oh no, you don't have it this time. Call, you know, or, oh no, you don't have it this time. I'm just going to move all in because I know you can't call.
I'll give an example.
We take a wrench and throw it into the fucking solver world.
Where you're not giving anything away, but I'll give a self-deprecating example of me where I should have deviated from GTO play this summer and it cost me. I'm in the one drop, a tournament I never would have played in the last 10 years.
Not the 100K, the 1,111 this year.
Because I'm like, I'm only playing WSOP tournaments this year. I have a different perspective on things. So I'm in this. Obviously, this tournament is filled with a lot of weak players, $1,100 buy-in tournament. I'm at a great table. I had, I think, just north of like somewhere between 80 and 100 blinds. I had a lot of chips. This is early on day two. I get involved. This guy to my right, who's a really kind of like goofball player. He had after I hadn't really done anything, I 3-bet him in position on the button when he opened cutoff, and he called out of position with queen 9 off. So, you know, like he's got his own theories about how to play that I don't necessarily agree with. But anyway, guy opens an early position off of not many blinds, like maybe 30 or so. He 3-bets him, which he wasn't a big 3-better. I have jacks, and we have about the same number of chips. I have jacks on the button. At about 80, it's my understanding of some pre-flop solutions is 80. It's kind of a fold. 100, it's a pure play between raise and 4-bet. But the truth is that let's say I had like 85 or 90.
Yeah.
The truth is that at this table, I should not get involved in, let's call it a break-even equity situation where I'm putting a bunch of chips on the line for no reason, because I'm basically going to be able to steal a bunch of pots or play small where I know what's going on. This is a situation where once I put it in, I have to fade 3 more people, including the pre-flop opener. I'm going to play a pot against this guy who probably has a pretty good hand. There's already a lot of chips in the pot. Like, this is just not a good spot for me to get involved. I got involved. I basically lost most of my chips. Guy ended up having queens. It was like an 8-high board. And after the hand, I went and looked it up. And even though GTO could have made me feel okay, not too bad about my play, I realized like I made a really bad play,
Horrendous
play.
And that's,
So-
I will say that. I mean, that's part
Yeah.
of part of my theory is why get it in now when you can get it in later. Especially you're at a table where you're basically just going to double your stack risk free.
Yes.
And you want to get and you have 85, 90 big blinds you can fold for hours and still have.
Or it's not even fold, but if I want to like do things like what I just did, 3-bet this guy who opens and gonna call me out of position with queen 9 off or whatever, or fold,
Exactly.
or you know what I'm like.
The point is you have the now,
Yeah.
which is a situation that they go with because the math says they have to go with, and you have the later, which is where I live. I live in the later.
Yeah.
And so, and it happens all the time. 20 minutes later, I have aces and some fucking goofball gives me a whole stack of 9s for no reason. And boom, now I'm up. Now I can start moving a little bit faster if I want to.
Yeah. Or like you said, some guy flops top pair and just loses a huge stack.
I won so many tournaments just by knowing they didn't have anything.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I want to segue and ask you about this. So I got brain fuel here. I know you talk about this a lot. I just want to know, like, be honest with me. What was different this WSOP than some others? Why you set a record, 7 final tables. You're obviously running playing well.
For posterity's purposes, I wrote this down. Just over $1.25 million cashed, 25K horse 6, 10K 08 5, 10K stud 4, 1,500 deuce to 7 single draw bracelet, 10K dealer's choice 2. That was an interesting one. You guys played heads up for a while. I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit about that. 10K Razz 8, 50K PLO 2. So actually 2 seconds. That those are probably. Although I mean the one in PLO you won a bunch of money for that one, so it couldn't have been.
Well,
but yeah,
that three-handed. Listen, I'll be honest. I didn't feel like I made many hands for a long stretch. If you're watching and you go back and you look at, hey, every time Phil had a pair. When I play Pot Limit Omaha online, there's a lot of set over sets. You flop a lot of sets. I don't remember flopping many sets for 3 hours in PLO. It's and so there weren't just. I didn't make the nut flush against the second nut flush, which is my specialty in that game. And so and everybody's specialty. All the great players seem to have the nut flush, and so it just felt like I just didn't. Felt like if I just had a little heat, I'm going to win that fairly quickly.
That was back and forth too. There's a lot of doubles. The chip lead was moving around. I mean, that was 3 great players. That could have gone anywhere.
You're against Adam in the 10K dealer's choice.
The only time I got tired.
I would have thought that you would have picked no limit hold'em, heads up, especially having played some heads up.
I watched that actually. I watched that heads up.
But I don't believe you had picked that. Are you happy having picked? I think you were picking like Matusow.
I told Mike
Badesi or whatever.
Listen. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We played. I woke up that morning and I said, "Wow, I'm going to win." I didn't have that many chips. There were like 14 left. I said, "Wow, I'm going to win." And then just boom, I got all the way to 4.2 million, and I think he had 1.3 million. And all of a sudden, I just got tired. And it's brutal, and everybody could see it. Mike's like, "Oh, I see it in your eyes." I couldn't even carry on a conversation. He asked me at one point in the match, he said, "Oh, who are the guys who you remember you finished second to?" And I couldn't even process the question. I was like, "Ooh, let me focus on this hand." And he asked me another question. So after just playing fucking dead strong alert and getting to 4.2 million, I got tired. And Mike's like, "Drink a brain fuel." And I realized, all right, it's going to keep me up 10 hours. But if I finish first or second, I'm not sleeping for 10 hours anyway.
Yeah.
So I slammed the brain fuel. I went to the bathroom. I asked Mike Matusow to slap me across the face again. I said, "Slap me as hard as you can."
No way.
Whack!
Oh, where's that content?
No, I felt
see that.
No, I felt some pain. And I'm like, oh my God, that woke me up. So between the brain fuel, now I came back. And now I was back 80% to where I should be.
Okay.
And then it just so happened that I lost every pot. And in his interview, he said, "Yeah, I had it every time against Phil the last half an hour."
That was a pretty incredible feat. This guy won 3 in a row years this tournament. First, I believe. I mean, it's pretty incredible. So, I mean, obviously a great player as well. But how much do the seconds hurt? Because I think one of the things people don't understand is the amount of seconds Phil has. He has 16 firsts, how many seconds and thirds? And we did this before. I forget. It's a lot. Like you could easily have 30 bracelets. It's not crazy.
Yeah, I think I have 13 seconds. Daniel was laughing because he's like, we're competing for the most seconds. I'm like, no, we're not, motherfucker.
You got, yeah.
I don't want any seconds. And he tied me for a minute and seconds. And I think I just had 2 more this trip.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have 13 seconds. That one hurt against Adam because I got tired and
is that
come
the
back
reason
to
why
your
you
question?
didn't pick No Limit?
No, I just had a bad feeling.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
kind of goofy, but I'm like, I just don't want to play No Limit.
Yeah.
But I should have because he was set up to call me.
Actually,
he picked off a bunch of bluffs. Everybody that picks off my bluffs, I bust them all. I mean, it's staggering. It's 90-some%. If you pick off a couple of my bluffs, I'm always busting you because I'm going to have it 90% of the time anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, so just keep calling. And so I wish going back that I would have, but I made another mistake too. It got to be 2 a.m. and I could have said, I've had enough. Yeah. He was forced to honor that. And so I just, after the slap in the face and all that bullshit, I got right back to even in chips. And I just wasn't paying attention. It was like 215, 210. And I should have at that point, my wife wasn't there. I would have had my wife saying, hey, honey, when it's 2, let me know.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't there because she was at Canyon Ranch. And she didn't even know I was in the tournament until I called her at midnight. I won the bracelet Sunday. I wasn't supposed to play on Tuesday, but I hopped in at 2. And now I have the chip lead Wednesday. I mean, I was so exhausted after all those final tables.
If I remember that right, I think you did play a no limit hand. It was a huge hand versus him. I think you did call one.
I had 7 deuce offsuit that hand. And I said, all right, I ran Daniel over 20 times in a row and everybody else. I'm going to raise it big. And he called and it came ace, queen, 3, all diamonds. I had the 7 of diamonds. So I needed a diamond as it turned out. If I hit a diamond, he's down on 800,000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't, but I went for it on the flop in the turn.
Oh, it was 3 diamonds and you had,
and you're in position too, right? You bet.
He had ace 8 of hearts. Yeah. I bet big on the turn. And even though I could see he was going to call, I still went for it. And that was a mistake too. You know how you just know they're going to call you? That's what happens to me. I know they're going to call. I should have just given up. And maybe the play was to jam on the river, and he might call it. I mean, he's very stubborn. I didn't realize how many he calls a lot. And so if I could go back in time, I would have stopped at 2 and come back at noon or something. He wanted to play the horse the next day, and I'm like, fine, we'll come back at noon and slept. And now he's going to get full metal Phil, again, back fresh, ready to go. Probably would have hit the gym before the match. I mean, I would have been ready. And so that one hurt. I mean, I got tired. And against Jeremy Osmus in that 3-handed match, I mean, I just felt like I could easily, but I wasn't tired. It was fucking.
Because you're a night owl a bit. You seem to go to bed later in general, right?
But I was for that one. I just had all the energy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily think I was going to win it, but
right.
During the WSOP, is there anything like from your day-to-day preparation or process?
Here we go. You finally brought it back to the brain field.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Jeff and I are owners of Brainfield.
Yes. Got the fridge. Look at that fridge over there.
I actually used it a few times.
Okay, so a couple of things about
Brainfield.
Brainfield.
Taking cases of mine. We're light on the cases.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Give us.
So first of all, I'd never used it in competition because I hadn't been in competition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't played in forever. So now, first tournament out of the box, I go in and I play at like 8 p.m. I'm not going to take a Brainfield at 8. Mm-hmm. And so now, but I told the Brainfield people, I said, I'm going to drink one every day at the series where I start before 3. And so I pulled it out. Now we're on day 2 of the 25K. It's a weird time to just pull out a new drink, but I have faith. So I drank it and I just couldn't believe it. I was just super calm all day. And I ended up with like 1.6 million in chips and I didn't get tired. Maybe I got tired the last 20 minutes, but we're playing 10 hours of poker. Yeah. And I didn't have a place to nap at that point either. So anyway, it just helped me a ton. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So I took one for day 3, made the final table. And then every other day 2 and day 3, I did a brain fuel, every single one. And it just, what it's supposed to do is so you drink a Starbucks, you go up and you go down, right? Yeah, and there's all this, Any coffee, up, down. This, it just has all these chemicals in it that allow you
Ingredients,
to.
chemicals doesn't sound good.
Chemicals sounds bad.
Yeah.
Are we trying to sell brain fuel?
Yeah. No, we're
drink
just telling-
chemicals. No, I mean seriously,
Good
drink.
ingredients.
There's some really good ingredients
Yeah.
in here. Some.
So that it's not
ginkgo.
just the caffeine and the caffeine crash or whatever. It kind
They
of
are
sustains
strong
it.
though. I drink about a quarter a day because I do feel it is very intense. Like
There's
it's
a
like
probiotic. There's beetroot. There's zinc. There's vitamin C and E. There's L-T-H-E-A-N.
L-theanine.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what it does is it basically it's designed. He's a surgeon from Chicago.
Yeah.
And he designed this drink to keep you level. And so I swear to God, this helped me a ton.
yeah. No, I think
A
it is
ton.
a great drink.
Because my biggest mistake as someone who's getting a little bit older, and even in the past, was I have this knowledge. I think I have the best knowledge base in the poker world. I think, and I told Mike that at the beginning of the trip, I said, Mike, I'm the best all-around poker tournament player in the world. He said, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I said, well, just watch. And then boom, I got there in every game. And I improved in every game too. Like there were things I didn't know. I played triple draw for a long time.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, some eye-opening stuff was taught to me. And then I played pot limit Omaha, and some eye-opening stuff was taught to me. And then I played, and so every game I improved. The only performance I didn't like was my stud performance. And then I think pot limit and the Omaha 8 or better maybe could have made one or two different plays. But I just felt like, oh my God, every table I felt I was the best player.
Right.
I'm the
That's
best
a nice.
pot limit Omaha player today. I'm the best at this. I'm the best at this. I'm for sure the best Razz player. There's a bunch of other great players there, but I mean, no one's done even close to what I've done. And so every day I felt like I'm the best player, except the stud
Mhm.
and the Omaha 8 or better.
That's
I never got going.
Yeah.
I'm going to win a bunch of Omaha 8 or better tournaments
It's a fun game.
because that's the most misunderstood game. But so anyway, with that knowledge base, what would happen to me is I would get tired all the time. If I go back and I just think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I had a huge chip lead in the limit hold'em and got tired at the end. I had the huge chip lead in the stud 8 or better. I had 1 million in chips.
You and Razz
And
played
just blew them all.
heads up the 50K. That was a crazy one too.
I might have gotten tired there because after folding 2 pair all for fucking 5 days, I went with 3 draws in a row against him, right? But I mean, whatever. I'm not taking anything away, Razz. You deserve the bracelet. But my mistake is, so what it does is this kind of kept me steady
Mhm.
and kept me awake, and then I was able to access my knowledge base.
Very
So
nice. Well, the
Brain
site,
Fuel was amazing, and then it's just sold out all over the country. Did you
it's
know
in
that?
CVS's everywhere. I know. It's great.
3,000 CVSs, they can't keep them in stock.
I love it. Well, listen, but in terms of like a routine though, in terms of someone who like now WSOP is moving from the Rio, it's going to be back. It's not that long, right? We're already in almost December and it's going to be back in end of May. So it's almost another WSOP coming up. What would be like when you tell people and they look at you, like, how do you do that? Do you rest? Do you take days off? Do you just play everything? Give like a couple of tips besides obviously having a nice kind of, the brain feel helps. What's sort of like your routine?
Brass asked me this question as well. So I think what happened was I was so fucking tired. I mean, listen, people don't understand the strength and energy. That Razz final table that I woke up Friday and I said, okay, I'm going to play the Omaha. Sean Deep talked me into the Omaha. He said, if you want to win player of the year, you have to play it. I hadn't played an Omaha tournament in 2 years because I felt like I always get in with the nuts and they always outdraw me. So I was snake bit. I'm like, you got to get over this snake bit shit. You won $1 million playing pot limit Omaha online in the last year.
Mhm.
You just get over the snake bit shit. How snake bit should you be?
Right.
And somebody helped me with a basic tip or two, really basic, nothing. And I was like, oh my God, the lights went on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to win a bunch of pot limit Omaha tournaments. This is beautiful. I know exactly what to do. I have my reading abilities. And so for that one in particular, I was completely exhausted. My wife and I, after my 8th place finish on Thursday night, we went for a late dinner. We stayed up, we watched movies. And then Friday, I woke up just gone.
Mhm.
And so I took a nap. I was so tired, I wanted to go to the gym first. I took a nap first. Then I went to the gym.
Mhm.
And I took another hour-and-a-half nap where I actually went into deep REM.
Yeah.
And then I got up. And of course, my eyes were still blurry and red. But workout nap. And then was able to grind through the end of the day.
I got to ask you about your focus because this is something, Mike Phelps, obviously, who I lived with for many years, world champion in his own 23 gold medals. very focused, very, very able to block everything out, just get out of my way. I feel like that's how you are as well. And even like we did some work with Playmaker, some cool video footage and stuff. We did this, but you're very like, some days you tell me you don't even talk to your wife, or like if you're like if you're in a tournament, she's around, it's even like, look, honey, sorry. Like it's not even like talk to her, just like she knows, like this is your zone. Tell me a little about your focus and how intense you are and how you think that helps you when you're playing.
No, I thought I did feel like the Razz was going to do well for me. I think so. I think that's the one she flew in for. I mean, literally, she was here Wednesday in Vegas, home Thursday, back Friday, home Saturday,
Wow.
back. I mean, like
Yeah.
she has to fly in for my final table. She was in 5. God bless her, right?
Yeah.
And one of the times when she arrived, I said, I'm going to say 5 words to her, 3 words to her. I said, enjoy the day.
That's
Went in and played. And I never said 1 word to her. And that happens to me. That happens to me when I'm at the peak of my powers. I'll wake up in the morning, and especially if my parents are there, or my kids or my wife, and I don't feel like saying a word to them, I'm like, oh my God, this is a great sign.
This is,
and then basically I'll say, hey, I really can't talk today. Love you, but I can't talk today. And then I won't say a word. And just hours will pass. It's like I'm saving every energy. Each word is energy.
Yeah.
When I get to the table, I can talk as much as I want, but it's like those words have a little bit of power, right? I'm talking to people, but my words have power.
Makes sense.
I
think
a lot of stuff I don't
It's
understand.
part of an interaction that actually creates feedback, which is important. Getting reads. I have thought about this, answering this question. I mean, like because people ask me, oh, Brian, like you seem like a person who's like on your A game a lot. And one of the things I tell people as well, actually, the real truth is I'm a person who's on what I call my B game a lot more than other people. Like, I think B game poker is me showing up, not being tilted and playing. A game poker is when you're on an intense level of focus and concentration, and like really, not only is it a process of like paying attention to hands and getting reads and all that, but even like there's a certain amount of strategic pre-planning and pre-adjusting. Like I know when I'm playing my best poker, like I am ready to make an adjustment prior to like the other person so you can anticipate it, right? And just you're sitting there and you're filling in all the time between hands. Not only like see the hand, see what that guy has, because every showdown bit of information and exactly how they played the hand is important. But then in all the in-between times, kind of filling it in with your strategic thoughts, planning, whatever, and working things out about like what you want to do and like, oh, I'm going to take this spot, or it's like, oh, this guy on the button is weak, so this guy's going to steal extra from there, or whatever. So I'm going to 3-bet light. Like there's you can just infinite number of these little things that A game poker is doing the best you can to like be in the moment and just like let as many of those thoughts flow through you. And I just like think most people don't understand that process.
They don't understand it, but there's another level too. I show 70-80% of my hands.
Yeah.
And I've been joking about it for the last few weeks. No other top player ever shows a card or a hand ever.
No.
And I show and I laugh and I'm like, I had it, right? People don't understand that has an effect on them. Me showing hands. So I'm taking something which they consider a weakness, showing their whole cards, and I'm turning into a strength. I had it. I see the reaction on their faces when I show it. I'm Phil Hellmuth. I had it. And so I'm actually
conditioning them.
I'm conditioning everybody around me at the same time as, so I'm on another level they don't even understand.
Oh yeah.
Because they won't even show their fucking cards. And I'm showing 90% of my hands, at least 70% of my hands.
There's only a couple people in the world who are very good at this. This
Nobody
is a totally
does.
separate thing.
Who else shows hands?
No, I don't mean showing hands, but I mean the process of like emotionally interacting with people at the table and getting and whether you want to call it manipulation or just creating a feedback loop where you now are going to play better against people, because it's not just showing the hands. You show the hands, you talk to them, and you see how that person reacts to you. If that person is confrontational, you probably have a good idea about what that means they might do during a hand.
Correct.
If that person is like, oh yeah, no, of course, Phil always has it, you might, but it's like you're creating a system with a lot of feedback and getting all this information. And this
Right.
is actually not something that I
getting-
do. I don't really do this.
I'm getting
So-
all this information from
Yeah.
everybody. So you have all these call it pros number 5 through 15 in the world, or 5 through 20, or maybe number 3 through 20. Maybe it's number 2 through 20 if I am number 1. And they all believe that showing hands is bad. And me, if I am the best, show, laugh, talk, creating, because there's energy, there's stuff to be learned. So, I mean, they're so one-dimensional. If I show my hand, they will know that I am exactly GTO. If I show my hand, then Hellmuth will have a read on me. If I show my hand, then, and so just muck. But I mean, I'd like to think that there's a level.
That is another level for sure. I'll say that one of the
Now
best
I'm getting
sessions
cocky.
I ever had, and it wasn't because of that, but I was in Macau when we were playing. This was actually the summer where I missed like half the WSOP because I was staying over there. But the players, the amateurs there, had requested that we show that anyone that wins a pot shows a hole card, and that ended up being one of my best sessions ever because I made a bunch of big hands. And then people were like, okay, he's lucky, he's running good. But then I had like all these crazy animal bluffs. And it just became this thing where I could just feel when someone wanted to call me.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could feel it. I was like, okay, this is time to not
full
bluff him.
pot. Yeah.
Like, and and it just, everything like worked out with the way it happened.
The crazy thing is, I feel who wants to call me.
Yeah.
And I identify it. And then I say it out loud. You're going to give me all the chips today.
I hear you say that a lot.
And then they get even more. Yeah, I'm going to call them. And then they give me all the chips. It's crazy.
You
It's
say
like
it too, like not even to them. You like say it to someone on the
If you
real
could go
fast,
back
honey,
and-
he's gonna give me all the chips.
If you could go back in poker history to every person that I called, that I said, especially for the first 25 years, you're going to give me all the chips, you would be stunned at how often it happened. You'd be like, oh my God, he's 80, 90%. How the fuck does he know this? But what you said is right. Sometimes you just know they've had enough,
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so me saying you're going to give me all the chips, that's feedback loop, and it keeps the loop going,
Yeah.
If I say you're going to play great against me and make a bunch of folds, maybe they would do that. But they're already set up. The trigger's already been pulled in their mind anyway, so you might as well encourage it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, take me through WSOP, your history. Where was it? Because it was just in the Rio since I've been playing. So now it'll be a new venue, Bally's Paris. What was it Binions for you before? What places have you played the World Series of Poker at? What venues? I mean, in the U.S.
Yeah. We started at the Horseshoe.
Okay.
And then they had it upstairs at the Horseshoe, downstairs at the Horseshoe. They once took the fucking valet area and turned that into a poker room at the Horseshoe.
Oh, wow.
And then where did we go from there? I don't remember.
But then, so Rio's been a big part. It's been for some time. Are you excited? I mean, you've obviously great memories, a lot of history at the Rio. Are you looking forward to this new stop, Bally's Paris? Do you think this is good, bad, and different? Or how do you?
Well, I realized this year, some of the guys that are willing to pay a lot of money, they can get a private room, right? And so, everybody's talking about this guy has a trailer, right? They're bragging about this guy has a trailer. I had a fucking room, right? But so they'd have a trailer. My room is closer, right? And I can get whatever the fuck I want, including a bed, whatever it is. And I just found myself one year when I asked for a room, which was the level above a trailer, I had a bed put in. I never slept in it. I never went to the room, and I'm like, fuck, what a waste. So for the last 10 years, I've had no room. Or you and I would occasionally, remember we'd have that room, we'd go in. Yeah, but I mean,
It's
it
nice.
was,
It's
it wasn't
nice just
very
for the
private.
bathroom, and it's like it's cool.
Private bathroom's good.
Yeah.
But even then, I just wasn't using I just went with everybody else for the last 10 years. And then this year I got a private room for the last week or two. I found it really helped me because there was a couch in there. And I remember my wife and I both napping a couple of times in there.
Yeah.
She's, and
it's nice to have the option. I think it's also like it's just like a placebo, right? It's like good to know you have it if you need it.
Right now I know where the best room is and the room I was going to request for next year. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But I kind of like being with the guys. I kind of like walking back and, in the sunshine. And so I don't know, are we going to have an outdoor area we can easily get to at the next venue? No. I'm looking forward to it. It's another chapter. And anytime you enter a new chapter, you have a chance to write a lot of history.
For sure. Yeah, I think it is exciting. It is very exciting. And you're not going to do WSOP Europe? You're taking a break. Will you go over there or you don't know?
Well, this is the first time I've said out loud I'm not going to WSOP Europe. So, yeah, my wife, about 3 weeks ago, she said, hey, can you just not go to WSOP Europe? I was so fucking tired. And it didn't count for Player of the Year. But I love Leon, and I actually love King's Casino. I really like it there. I'm super happy when I'm there.
Right.
It was so funny. I'm going to tease Daniel a little bit. I heard Daniel saying, well, I don't like King's Casino very much. And then I said, man, I wonder how he's going to react to this. Because then I went and I talked to Ivy. And Ivy and I love it there. We both agreed we love it there. It's quiet. It's calm. There are some, out of control stuff that happens sometimes in that place that nobody knows about. That's not me, and that wasn't Ivy. This last couple of years we've been there.
Yeah.
And so he and I, we both love the calmness. And then I'm like, Daniel, Phil, Ivy and I just love it here. Daniel looks at Ivy, and I was like, yeah. And Daniel's like, I really like it here.
Yeah, little shift. He shifted it.
I really like it here a lot now.
I think it was some of the food. Daniel's got very specific food restrictions too and stuff. So I think it's not maybe.
I'm just teasing you, Daniel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the calmness. I like it there. And so, plus they take amazing care of me, right? I mean, like, hey,
yeah.
I mean, I think they spent $20,000 on a first class ticket for my wife, and
Oh,
she's like, I've never flown Air France first class before, because I guess Air France first class is really spectacular. And she said that was the best flying experience of my life.
There you go. That adds a little. That makes it easier when you got to go over and it's a night, because it's a little bit of a trek. Right? You have to fly in, then there's a drive. It's not in the main
Player
area.
of the Year was part of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we would see
You would
over
be there.
You're number
You're
2
set.
right
You're
now. I
obviously
mean, this
there.
would be
Even if I were number 10.
Yeah.
Listen, I love it over there, and I'd like to go. I think the timing's bad because it's the end of. What are we going to do? Like, I have no adrenaline left, right?
Yeah.
Adrenaline is a huge thing, and adrenaline can allow you to play 3 or 4 days straight when you're so exhausted you can't even see straight.
Yeah.
Right. But when your adrenaline's gone, I'm right at the edge right now. No adrenaline left.
Right.
And so I can't. And what am I going to do?
It's going to take a little time to get acclimated already. It's already started. The series is basically going.
Yeah, and I like these 10K mix. Has been a lot of fun for me, right? And there's a lot of events where they have like $500 buy-in, where there's 10,000 people in them, a bunch of day ones, day twos. It's harder to win a bracelet.
For sure. Cool. Well, yeah, I think overall poker seems to be in a great place. Do you feel that way right now? Do you, like, from what you saw, the level of play?
I said it in 2019, Jeff. I said, when I saw, I couldn't believe it. There was a weekend in 2019 where they had a $1 million guarantee in Northern California, $1 million guarantee in LA, and a $2 million guarantee like on the East Coast somewhere, all in the same weekend.
Right. Yeah, it's
and they all went flying over. And I said, oh my God, poker is not only back, it's back in a huge way, but not the highest of the high limits. What you see is people want to play the game. They want these $300 buy-in, $500 buy-in, 1K buy-ins, and they'll show up in droves. They love the game. They want to play the game. And so I was like, this is a huge positive sign for poker. Plus, we're going to have legalization in the States.
Yeah,
and
considering the restrictions,
and that's the Super Bowl.
Well, look at the WPT.
The WSOP was pretty successful considering the restrictions.
And the time,
like,
it's not during people's
foreign
summer,
players.
right?
It was tough. The quarantine and with the vaccine requirement. Like, if there had been nothing, like if this had taken place in summer when they were able to
and they
pull
could
it
have,
off,
yeah.
Or if there was just no restrictions now, I mean, this
probably
would have been the biggest.
Well,
WSOP
I'll give you an
ever.
example.
Next year
The
could
World
be
Poker
huge.
Tour in Florida, how World Poker Tour has been around 20 years. They set the record of entries by like 25%. More than the history of their biggest field ever. This was just the mat. I went there.
Yeah.
I had to wait.
It's like 6 months ago.
Yeah, and they had glass. Everyone's wearing masks and full glass at every table.
It's still 25% more
higher than their
ever
record
had.
in 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I mean, it shows you.
So I think
play.
poker's just going crazy high right now. And Rasty's right. And come on, man. I mean, this is the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a super spreader event, right? And they did something very smart, and I'm not I stay out of people's business.
Yeah.
Right. I believe the science. I believe in the science of the vaccine. I could be wrong, but I know that I got vaccinated as soon as I possibly could, as did my wife, as did my sons. And so the fact that they had 20,000 vaccinated players here and no outbreak for 6 weeks. Now, I guess when the main event started, we started getting some people sick. There were, at that point, I think we had close to 100,000 different players playing tournaments. And so they had a few people that finally got some COVID, but we're in Vegas, and a lot of people are very irresponsible, right?
Yeah.
They're going to the strip clubs, they're going to the whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not judging anybody,
Mhm.
you know.
For sure. No, there were a few cases, but it was very under control. No like events or they had to stop it. It seemed under the radar. Maybe a few people mentioned they caught it.
Super under the radar. I didn't
Yeah.
even know
Right.
anybody had caught it. I thought, wow, 100,000 people, 0 cases.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the middle of a pandemic, to have this many people show up, you're right. It would have been even bigger.
Yes.
sure.
I mean, we're not even have to wait that long to hopefully find out, right? I mean, next end of May, beginning of June at Bally's. And hopefully by then we will have some differences. Either a lot more people will be vaccinated or maybe no requirement, so that people who make whatever choice they want to make can all come play.
For
And yeah, it's going
Absolutely.
to be exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I know, Phil, I know you got a busy schedule. You're super, you said you were very tired. Obviously, this just ended yesterday. You were literally going for player of the year as of yesterday.
Yeah.
How was that? Give me, as we kind of wind this third episode of Big Free down, how was that going for it to be in contention in the last tournament? You were actually in the money with like 80 left with a nice chip stack. I mean,
I've never gone for player of the year before. By that, I mean, I play tournaments to win bracelets. I care about bracelets the most. And I found myself somehow finishing 3 times second player of the year. And one of them, Merson had to win the main event. If he finished second, I was player of the year that year.
That's so crazy.
Then Ben Lamb had to make the final table of the main event. He had to finish 8th in the main event.
Wow.
And he took it from me. And then Jeff Madsen, which I complained about, the rules they had posted, I passed him by those rules. But I'm not trying to take it away from you, Madsen. You had a phenomenal year, 2 firsts and 2 thirds. But the rules were a little bit vague, and they had to have a meeting. Ty Stewart and all the guys got together, and they gave it to Madsen. But that one could just as easily. So
what
3
happened
times.
there? What was the just some
Well,
ruling on how the points?
No, back then it was whoever won the most money.
Oh,
Interesting.
And right before, I think there was somebody at the final table, maybe it was 03, at around 6:30 in the morning. Okay. The day before the main event final table on the last tournament, I finished 3rd.
Oh, wow.
I remember my poor wife. She was there at 6 a.m. just like this. There were like 3 people in the room, the dealer and 1 floor person, you know. And unfortunately, I finished 3rd, but I passed him, and I was like, "Oh my God, I just won Player of the Year," because I knew the numbers. And they said, "Wait a minute, we don't know." And Ty Stewart called me, and they said, "We're going to have a discussion and figure this out." And next thing I know, they gave it to Madsen. But it was very controversial, you know. And so now 3 times, this is my 4th time finishing 2nd player of the year.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it really hurts. Now, the one way to look at it is it's a testament to how great I am at poker that I've finished 2nd 4 times.
yeah.
The other way to look at it is fuck this shit.
Yeah.
You know? Give me the fucking banner, God damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a little frustrating, but that's also so it's very strong results.
So it made me do things I wouldn't do. So JG, we played till 4:30 in the morning on Saturday.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Osmus beat me. Well, the 50K started at noon.
Yep.
So by the time I get to the room, it's 5:30. I
Right.
need to have a little food. I need to decompress. I slept 3 hours and then entered a $50,000
Oh,
buy-in
you entered on
tournament.
time. You could just enter.
Oh no, because it was day 2,
No,
right?
you couldn't. It was day 2.
You
Oh,
couldn't
it was
go
day
late.
2. That's
So
right.
you actually
yeah,
are literally
Okay.
forced in almost.
So now I have to sit down on 2 or 3 hours of sleep with 10
brutal.
big blinds. I picked up Ace Jack suited about the 10th hand, 3rd hand, and I went with it. It was fine. I mean, I had 10 big blinds, and I'm out after 3 hands, and I'm like, now I'm on 3 hours sleep, and it's just now there's the turbo.
Yeah.
I have to go straight to that fucking event, right? And
Finished top 3.
I'm playing the 1K turbo, and there's 1 rebuy, and I remember saying, okay, I can't. Not only can I not see straight, I have no patience. I just can't play. And so I just moved in with King 6 of diamonds. I raised. The guy with aces smooth called. This guy re-raised, and I just went with it. The aces called, and I made a flush. And I said, you know what? Maybe we need to. And I had a room at that point, so I had 27K. Started with 25, and I went to the room and napped for half an hour. And then I had the energy to continue to play. But I mean, man, you're just hanging by a thread. I mean, I need 9.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And then,
And
and then you got to play the 100K the next day. And So at least I slept really well before that one.
And did you
That's
play?
really important for performance.
Yeah.
Day to day, like you gotta get enough sleep. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
if
can go on
start
adrenaline
getting
for a
in
little,
sleep
but once
debt,
you get caught
that
behind, now
catches up to
it
you
can
more than
hurt
anything
you
else.
for the future more than it helps. And were you playing some online events? Were you ever multi-table? I know Daniel and some of the guys like to do that, or do you just like to focus? Or were you?
I
play
made
your
a
phone around?
mistake. I skipped most of the online tournaments because I remember playing all summer and not doing particularly well and just like, fuck this. And then I played one after not cashing last Sunday. I decided to play the 700. I didn't have enough money in my money to play the 7K 7-7. So I played the 777 just after I tweeted I'm back, right? And then I went into the big bet mix game.
Yeah.
So I'm playing at the table and all of a sudden I'm in the money. And I mean, I got to 120K in chips and I fluctuated between 120 and 190. When I hit 150, I was like fourth in chips. Fast forward to like 3 hours later, there's 40 players left and I'm 38th in chips. I still have 150.
Wow.
I never moved. And I had a hand that I regret a little bit. It was just, there was a flow of the game. There was game flow. I was making all kinds of tight folds. Whenever I raised on the button or the cutoff, they all folded to me. So hung around. And then with 37 left, someone on my right raised and I had ace 9. And I was down to like, I don't know, 5, 6 bigs or something. 6, somewhere, maybe it was 7, but I went with it. And I regretted it. I ran into kings in the big blind. I thought, you know what, I could have folded. Maybe I would have gone up another 15 spots.
Right.
Just in this little weird range. It was just,
well, that's an
I don't remember ever being in an online tournament for hours, going up every 20 minutes or whatever it is, and just sitting in that range. It was like there's something weird about it to me.
But it's also, you say you regret it, but at the same time, like you might have, if you had played all those online events while you were live, maybe your live results would have been worse because obviously you're giving up something by being focused. So it's kind of a tricky
But
thing.
let me tell you something. You know how many points I got for that little 37th place finish? 280 points or some shit.
Wow, really?
So like, yeah, you literally.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Like 2 more cashes online.
Yes. I think 1 more cash online gets me close to him.
Oh, because they have so many runners, right? So you get a lot of points.
Yeah, that's your point.
Correct. So then afterwards, I was like, oh my God. So if I'm playing for player of the year and I'll try harder next time for player of the year, you can't miss those online ones, even if you have to come up the last second.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Too many points.
It's tricky. Yeah.
Do you know how many total tournaments you played at the 2021 WSOP?
Yeah, I was surprised at how few. They give you I don't know, you guys know this, you can go ask for a readout.
Yeah.
And they give you a sheet of the tournaments you played. Did you know that?
See that? No.
It's so cool. They're like, Phil, do you want to read it? I'm like,
does it tally it? Does it tally your caches and stuff, or just it shows
yes, everything's there.
Yeah.
These are the events you played. This is how many times you.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. This was last night that I did this, and
I wonder if it's too late.
Cool.
I wonder if you can still do it today.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
They'll probably email it to you
at the cage.
Yeah.
They probably would email. Well, so what's the number? 40?
No, way less.
Oh,
30.
No, I mean, through the first like 3 weeks, I'd only played 8 events or something.
Oh wow!
Because I made every final table.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty crazy.
And I took days off, and so I don't know by the end of it.
About 3 and 4 days. So yeah, maybe you're only like 28 or something.
I'm thinking 28. I have the exact number, but I always laugh because the guys that are playing for Player of the Year, they always play twice as many as me every year, and I'm always right there in the mix anyway. So, and I believe that these guys played 2x plus the tournaments I played. Sean, Deeb, and Daniel.
Yeah, he played 55, I think I saw, or something. 50 something.
Only 55, so he only played double what I played. That's
a lot.
Yeah, if you put it this way, the number of top 2 Player of the Year finishes, 4 is probably the record.
Yeah,
yeah, but that record doesn't sound impressive.
It's pretty impressive. Well, you have 164 some caches, I think, the World Series, and I think Daniel's got the most, maybe 2.
Yeah, but take all the online caches out. I mean, the guy cashed. Daniel's a great player, and he and I get along really well, despite him constantly attacking me. But you look at the online 2 months. What did he cash? 30 times. He gets 30 caches by playing these online tournaments. I don't think that those should count.
I think it should be maybe a hybrid of that. I think it should like very clearly show, because they show you like circuit, they show you Europe World Series. It should be like, they should just say online though. It should be a caveat. I think it should like break it into its own category.
It should be their own category.
Not saying it doesn't count, but maybe it should just, it should be known like it's not, because it is different. It's different. It's
It's
online.
different.
I feel like the World Series live in Vegas is like the grade A official, and then the stuff that gets counted beyond that, whether it's the overseas ones or the online, like, okay, maybe it's kind of part of their brand, so they're going to do that. They want to get people to play online and travel to those places, but it's sort of not the same. Like I only went one time. I never went to, did they do it in Asia? I went to Europe once. That was Europe. I will say there are a few of those fields that are pretty small. Like it's definitely like one of the
You won the
easiest
main
live
event.
shots to
Yeah.
win.
So, like, it's hard-
Luckily for me, I won with 450 players and happened to be the main event. So it's really
Yeah.
hard to question that bracelet.
Yeah,
I know 450 is decent, but I'm just saying, like, I
And the
forget
main
what
event?
tournament, there's like one that's like 30, or like you get
Yeah,
some of these
yeah,
tournaments where the 30 players, and
Well,
no, the
they're
main
also-
event that's 450 10K. I mean, that's like a real tournament.
Well, they're also giving like Pennsylvania online, like for there was like 50 players or 30 players. Like that's, then it starts getting to be, that's a
No,
little-
that makes perfect sense. Somebody
Yeah.
that won $6,700, he should win a bracelet.
right. We got to have, listen, it does a lot right. We're very happy about the WSOP, but we want to voice our opinion.
Listen, I love the WSOP.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, of
To
course.
me, and you talk about when you're sitting there saying the WSOP real person, I'm excited listening to you because I'm like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
But then the online should be a layer below that. We have the World Series of Poker in person right here. I get excited when he says it.
Right.
But then the online's just different.
Well, listen, I was calling, I don't want to build I don't need to build up.
Bracelets
your thing.
online should count.
When I called today to add
Yeah.
you to the list here at the gate, the guy literally said the real Phil Hellmuth, like he was like excited. I swear to God. So listen, it's right. You embody WSOP. We're very happy.
He does, and in fact, I want to say this because I've said to a couple people, poker's changed a little bit in my life in the last year and a half because of COVID for a number of reasons. But I actually played the least I played since I was in college. But I went in this it's not the summer, to this WSOP going, okay, I'm like going to come to this WSOP. I didn't play a hand of cash, which has never happened. I just played, I played maybe 30 odd tournaments. But I went in, wanted to compete. And I literally said to maybe a couple people, like, I'm doing this WSOP Phil Hellmuth stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to go
You
in.
told me that.
Yeah, I told Phil, like, I played the one drop. I don't know. I never would have played a 1K buy-in no limit hold'em tournament before because it was always like a money calculation. Like, okay, so even if I did come over and like max late reg a tournament, it'd be like a 10K for fun. I'm like, okay, I'm stepping away from like a 4K, 8K limit game to have some fun. At least it's got to be like a 10 or 20K buy-in tournament. But my perspective is totally different. And I'll tell you what, I had a great time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to go over.
I
there
played
and compete
zero
with
cash
Camaraderie.
games, and usually I play at least 1 or 2 days. 0 in 8 weeks being here.
Yeah.
So
And I loved it too. I love
I get it. It's fun.
There's a camaraderie
It
there
is,
too.
yeah.
Everybody's smiling. Everybody knows everybody. It's just these high limit players, and then when you play in the tournaments where there's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 strangers, they're all happy that I'm at their table. They're all happy to be there.
Yeah.
And we have the poker community is so nice, and it's just 90% plus really good people.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
agree with that.
And so sometimes there's too many stories about a few bad apples.
Right.
But I want to talk about all the fucking good apples in our game. And
Absolutely.
there's a ton of those.
Yeah, very interesting people,
'Cause-
very good-hearted. And so there, a lot of my closest friends I've met
Yeah.
through poker directly or indirectly. And
You have
I'm very
people,
grateful
listen,
for
you have people who decide that they want to take some chance. But they want to do that in a game with strategy, a game where you're thinking. And I think that's cool. Not just go on and just like bet it on a coin flip. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's fun. You have all these interesting people who like thinking, like
Yeah,
competing.
you can talk, you hang
know,
out. You get,
And poker creates an environment where that's possible. Like you take some other games, not to say like chess, it's a beautiful game. But if you play chess against a great player, you're going to lose every time. Someone can come into a poker table and win. I mean, there's just been a bunch of examples of that happening. You can sit down at your table and do well and compete,
You guys, if you're on the East Coast and you walk into a casino or in Vegas, but especially the East Coast because there's so many high limit games in Vegas, and you sit down in like a 20-40 game, whatever, a 10-20, the mix of people there, it's just everybody's represented from
it's an
everywhere.
eclectic group.
Yeah.
It's amazing. right?
Yeah, it really is.
And you're like, oh my God, that's Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the next to him is whatever, and the other side is whoever, and it's just like, just that it's just everybody enjoys competing against each other. It's where we can kind of come together and just compete.
For sure. Do you know if the tag team would have counted for POI?
Would not have.
Wouldn't have. All right. Well, who got 2 out in that? You know that, right? I was going to say that would hurt if that was the that held you
I
back.
found out later. But
Yeah,
you and I, it was fun.
Yeah,
playing.
that was fun, man. That was a good time.
In fact, we had recruited Razz for the team,
Yes.
and then we found out you could only have 2 on a team.
Yeah, it was two team. We had to stick with the brain fuel and stick with us. But Razz and I played on a tag team. It's a fun event. I wish they would make it 4-person. I think it should be the option 2 to 4. I like that you have an option. But that's another thing. We will say there's so many cool formats, variations. You know, they tried the flip and go. There's bounty tournaments. There's knockout tournaments. I heard they're going to add progressive knockouts, which I think would be a lot of fun. You see the Win doing mystery bounties. Like that to me is why poker is so amazing, because there's like, all right, forget no limit hold'em vanilla tournaments. You can do so many creative, fun things. People love to have the perfect luck skill combination. I think that we're seeing that with the innovators of the game, party pokers, the GGs, doing creative formats, making poker fun, and people having a good time. And I just think that, again, it's growing. It's in a good
And
spot.
I think this, mark my words, Jeff, I'm going to say this. I think a lot of people are seeing the beauty of all these mixed games.
Yeah.
The streams are out there and people are coming.
It's fun.
I think the mixed games are going to go huge in numbers. There's more luck.
Mhm.
So anybody can win in the mixed games, and we had a player win a tournament. I don't want to talk about who or throw shade at anybody. I'm sure he's a nice guy. This is just about poker skill we're talking about,
Mhm.
not the person. A person won a tournament and he hadn't played half the games before, right? And so the mix. That's why in years past I was focused more on no limit hold'em. Even in 2018, I'm like, it's the mixed games. I'm going to make a lot of final tables, right? But it's harder to win, right?
Mhm.
Which means it's easier for an amateur. First tournament out of the box, a 25K. I was the final table, playing great. Matt Glantz was there, and we had an amateur from the East Coast win it, a businessman.
Mhm.
And so I think more and more people are going to be playing mixed games, and I think they get bigger and bigger. And there's going to be enough great players that win those
Right.
mixed games.
Yeah, it's nice to have a mix. That's what you want. You don't want to have a chess or something where it's just the better player wins every single time.
I look at this. Interesting. I just thought of this. Of the 7 final tables I had, where did I finish first, second, and second? Well, first was deuce to 7, no limit, where you can bet all the chips. So it's not a limit game. My other second, Pot Limit Omaha, where you can bet all the chips. And then the other one was the one that Adam and I, that's the mixed game where a lot of the games were betting all the chips.
Mhm.
And in the mixed games, I think I had a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th and an 8th or something. And so those mixed games, the limit games, I'm trying to say. So when you're playing limit poker, anybody can win. And I think that's going to drive a lot of people eventually away from no limit and towards the mixed games.
For sure.
Another thing that I think is beautiful about the mixed games now, something that drew me to them some years ago, and I mean, I'm just looking, and you can look in your results are more and more going to doing very well in mix, is I think like fundamentally speaking, behind it all, I believe poker is a game of math. Now, clearly there's a human element and you can get a lot out of it, but like as the standardization of and GTO poker drives no limit, which is being able to be studied and broken down to this. And yes, it's more robotic, and yes, there's problems with it, but it's more fundamentally good play. And at this point, it's not some guy's video 10 years ago with his theory that's not really based on math. No, it's like a solver's mathematical output that yes, people have to implement and they're going to make mistakes and whatever, but it's getting better. But the mix, that's not really out there yet. Maybe some people have some private stuff, but in terms of publicly, like PO Solver or whatever, it's just not. And so it's almost a little bit like going back in a way back poker time machine. Because like I remember, it's like if you go back,
They're also talking about a
things,
lot more cards.
a lot more cards, a lot more going on. You got to learn how to play 8 games. There's not like a good fundamental way to study them, unlike No Limit Hold'em now. And it's like you go back and, just take No Limit Hold'em, for example. Like people used to do this like small, like 3-bet 2.5x the open out of the small blind versus your like button open. That was awful. Solvers are doing 4x now, and now like everybody in the population is doing stuff like that, right? But it's like there's nothing like that happening in mix. So now you just have people with their own theories. And I'd almost say this, it's like, not to take anything away from how good some of these guys are getting with no limit hold'em and studying, but that's not why I got into poker. And like, I enjoy the process of thinking on my own. And to a certain extent, I think a lot of the really great poker talents, not that some of these guys aren't, but it's like figuring it out. And if you do it for no limit, you should be able to do it for all the games. Because even though the games have different rules, at the end of the day, you're applying a lot of the same.
You should be able to do it
theories.
away from the table. I always said
Yeah.
the great players can become billionaires, and a bunch of them did.
Yeah.
These guys that started Susquehanna or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These guys were professional poker players, not making much money, living in Vegas. And now, what's the guy worth? They're worth hundreds of billions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I think if you can make a living playing poker, if you can become great at poker, that applies everywhere else. And when it comes to what you're talking about, Rasty, these mixed games, right? I mean, there's strategies. I changed my strategy. I'm playing when someone raises, and I have a hand that everybody else plays in the mixed games, and the alarm bells are going off. I think he actually has the ace deuce in Omaha or whatever it is. Maybe I'll just fold this hand instead, right? I mean, you're playing all summer with 5-6 big bets in these mixed games, in the mixed limit games, 5-6 big bets. And so, some very skilled folds could yield the difference between a 30th place finish and a 5th place finish. And so, so reading ability comes into the limit games as well. So I just, number of times I'm like, okay. And I'm sitting at the table doing exactly this. Well, I have to play this hand. Everybody on the planet says I have to play this hand, but wait, I know he has it. But I have to play it, and I go like this. Okay, fold.
Yeah.
And I might text one person on the planet, Mike, I just folded this. And I'll be like, sick. But I can't text anybody else, because if anybody else on the planet I text will say, that's a bad fold, obviously. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, no one can argue with the results. No one can argue with your methodologies. I think it's exciting to watch.
I would say that I think the people that say that's a bad fold, obviously, listen, the right way to respond to that is that, yeah, theoretically, that's a bad fold in a situation where his range is supposed to be this. But in a situation where the guy has it, it's actually a good fold, right? Because mathematically, if the guy's range isn't wide, if it's like, say, really, like he has a really good hand, you're not supposed to play in this.
Well,
especially with ICM.
Well, Rast, how many times have you and I, because I'm giving you a lot of credit, how many times have the guy is playing every hand and he suddenly raises? You're like, shit, this time he has aces. You look down at queens and you're like, God damn it, why does he have aces this fucking time?
Yeah.
And you just know he has aces, and then I'll just fold the queens. And then
Phil, I will give you.
I always like to show people.
You're better than me at this specific.
I always like to show. I always
say
like to
on
show
camera.
my opponent the queens. Show one of the guys on my left, because they always fall out of their chair, right?
Yeah.
They're like, "What the fuck? I've been waiting 4 hours to move with that hand." I remember I was playing in a cash game in 2019. Finally, for the first time in a long time, I had 150,000 in front of me in a cash game in Vegas in the Aria, right? Playing no limit hold'em, and they dealt me kings, right? And the guy opened for 4K. It was a massive raise. Blinds were only like 2,400 or something, 3-6, 4K,
8x.
and it goes call, and I'm like, well, let me send a signal. I'll make it 16,000. I haven't raised a pot in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Gets back to him 44,000, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I know he has aces. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna fold, but let me have some fun. So I showed Alan Keating the kings. He's just got very still, and I showed the next guy the kings, and he got very still. And I said, hey fellas, I already know he has aces. I'm folding the kings, and I folded. And the guy swore to God he had aces later. Didn't show it to me then, but swore to God and was asking me, how did you know? Blah 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 blah. And but it saved me 150,000.
Yeah.
And then I quit right after that. I was up 8K, and I'm like, God damn it. I mean, could have come the other way.
Yeah, for sure.
But
there's certain things in those spots where it's like you've been playing for hours, and you know that you've been playing tight. That guy knows you've been playing tight.
Correct.
And you basically just made a 3-bet the field, probably like out of position. It's like
I just made my biggest bet in 2 hours, 16,000.
And this guy,
after just showing all these folds.
You probably got a read. He just confidently makes it 44,000. Like, oh my God, Phil
He
has
looked
a huge
back at
hand.
his cards.
Like, I'm about
he
to
looked
like,
down. You know,
visions of Vegas and the mirage going off. You
yeah.
know, but it just so I don't know. There are definitely times like that, and when you're in and you're willing to like go with it, you can make great plays. You know, I mean, so that obviously there's no GTO thing about that. It's just more, you know, what your image is and that guy's image. And maybe at that moment you feel like he would only 4-bet me with aces, because if he has ace king or queens or jacks or even kings, maybe he just calls my 3-bet. And because like once he makes it 44K with queens, is he folding if you shove like for 90 more? Like probably not. So it's like, wow, Phil's been playing so tight. Most people in that spot like aren't going to risk whatever 100, 200-300 blinds with queens. They're just have aces 100% of the time there, you know. But it's like you can kind of sometimes like making some very specific adjustments to your read. You can kind of like narrow someone's range down that much, and it ends up being the right play. And I think other people get trapped too much in the like, oh, this guy's range should be this here. And yeah,
he
like,
was playing fast.
Theoretically,
Actually, he was playing fast,
but it's
he was
not.
playing fast, but I'd never seen him 3-bet that day. You know?
Right. Yeah,
Or not even 4-bet. And you know, or you had never even seen him 3-bet, and now he's 4-betting.
Oh wait, I'd never seen
Yeah.
him 4-bet. Right?
Oh yeah. You know,
And
so
to make a big 4-bet against me, and I mean 16,000. I mean the pot was already just so bloated, 4K to 16K. You know, I mean, I just felt like I was announcing my hand, because I knew the other two guys were going to call anyway.
Yeah.
So I might as well announce, because you're calling.
Right.
And then the nightmare happened, you know.
yeah, I just think there's times when certain things happen at the table, and it's like, you know, some guy who's like studied GTO is getting like way too caught up in like what someone's theoretical range is, and they're just, whoever your opponent for whatever reason is not executing. Like you could even say, going back, like you probably didn't have a GTO 3-betting range there of like 10% of hands like squeezing the pot. You had been playing snug, and like, you know, now I don't know whether that's true or not, but like obviously for that guy to have only aces, that guy's making that determination, and you in the moment know that guy's making that determination, you know.
Right.
But like other people just like,
But
it's
that's
like they
something
take that whole
you
all
talk
out of the
about
process.
poker being pure science and math. It isn't. There's an element. I mean, it's obvious. There's an element of, I mean, I've made some of the most amazing laydowns in poker history that have been televised, right?
Yeah.
And been stunning. It's been right a stunning number of times, right? Saved my tournament life, 30 times on television, where everybody else on the planet goes broke at that point. And so, so poker isn't just math; it's also psychology.
For sure.
Oh, for sure.
And reading, and like all of that's in. But anyway, all right. Listen, you're going to drive me back to the Aria? Are you leaving?
Yeah, we're gonna
Let's do
wind this down, and we are gonna thank you for watching. We're also gonna give away some signed copies of Dan Bilzerian's new book. I'm gonna go get those signed tonight. Gonna drive over, have him do that, and we will be having a $100 giveaway in Bitcoin. If you guys retweet, we'll have that info below. And Phil, segue us out. What is Bitcoin Latium? Can you talk about that?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Yeah, because I actually am very curious on that.
Yeah,
so we talk all our deals, Phil. I haven't got the full skinny, so break it here.
So Bitcoin Latium is a coin that just hit 8 different exchanges.
Okay.
But nothing big yet. It's on smaller exchanges. So what Bitcoin Latium does is they raise. I don't know if they've raised $1 billion, but they raise. Their goal was to raise $1 billion in cash, cash and securities, and that sits over here in a pot, right? And then and they released 222 million coins. So each coin is already theoretically worth $4.
Okay.
Okay, so there's some actual value. Then the transactions on our network. So there's 36 coins that have their own network or something. So we're number 37 or whatever it is. So we have our own network.
Okay.
And so what we allow you to do is buy a Starbucks coffee with your Bitcoin Latium. And the fee is going to be 10 cents, 20 cents, something like that. So every time a transaction happens on the network, 70% of the fee goes into this pot. So you can imagine if there's 1 million transactions a day, the pot will turn into $1 trillion very quickly, and each coin is worth $1 million, right? So, but you need adoption. You need tons of people using it, right? And so the speed that the transaction is. So we're also really good with speed, right? So it might take us like 3 minutes to approve a transaction versus if you send a friend a Bitcoin, sometimes it's 24 hours, 36 hours before it arrives. We do it very quickly. And then you can insure your coins. So Marsh & McLennan's a very famous insurer. And you say, listen, if you register, you say, I have $50 million in coins. I want to insure them. And Marsh & McLennan says, okay, because we have a 3-step security process that you have to use. 1, we have a password. 2, you have to use your iPhone. And 3, you have to have a credit card. So if you leave your credit card at home and all you have is your iPhone and your password, you can't get in. You need all 3. So you take the phone, it scans the credit card, and then you put in. So it's a triple layer security. That's why Marsh & McLennan is insuring the coins. Well, say that Marsh & McLennan says it costs you $100,000 a year to insure 50 million. Everybody's going to do that because you have a guaranteed $50 million. You're paying $100K a year to do it. Well, 70% of that money goes into this pot.
Oh, wow.
And so it just keeps growing. And so speed of transaction, ease of transaction, being able to buy a Starbucks coffee without paying a $30 fee for your Starbucks, rather 10 cents. And so we're ahead of the curve in so many different ways. It's really cool. And it's really been fun to be a part of. Now, I'm an endorser of Bitcoin Latium, and I'm not telling anybody to buy. They did not ask me to raise any money for them. Some of my friends put in money. They came to me. A lot of my friends put in money. And so I look forward to, getting listed at Coinbase and Gemini. Hopefully that's going to happen. It's my number 1 project.
Very nice. Well, I'm going to be asking more about that off of camera, and as well, I see Luxon on your hat. Obviously, I'm a big believer in Luxon. I know Rusty likes it as well, and that is something that
investor, right?
We are definitely on Team Luxon, but also you can use that for WSOP Europe. They're taking that. It really does make things easy in terms of moving money quickly.
I love Luxon. Luxon is my second. Bitcoin Latium is my number 1 project, but Luxon, which is on the side of my head here, is my number 2 project.
They're strong. Luxon's strong. I believe Bitcoin Latium. I see it's on your front and center, so it must be strong. And guys, thank you for watching. This was episode number 3 of Big Free with Phil Hellmuth. And again, $100 Bitcoin giveaway, Bilzerian book signed, going to be giving those away. So stay tuned. Phil, thank you for the time. We'll see you very soon. Congrats on a very successful World Series of Poker. Enjoyed it. Thank you for being on the tag team with me. Thank you for the time, and we'll see you very soon.
WSOP.
Yeah, cheers. Golf for clap for Phil. See you guys.
I'll stop.
Hit the end button there, Razz.
Which one?
The upper right end.
And
My wife called